Hey friends, welcome back to Woodshop Diaries. In today's video, let's build something.
So I thought I would do this video a little differently. I'm still going to show you how I built this buffet console, but along the way, instead of just the how-to, I thought I'd include some of my random, often unhinged thoughts that I had while working on it. So if you're just here for the build, you might prefer to watch it muted, but if you're interested in hanging out a bit, turn up the volume and be sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm considering doing more of these. Okay, so I opted to build this project from your basic big box store pine and spruce, and some birch plywood. I'm actually planning a pretty big project soon that I'm debating on what kind of wood that I want to use, so this project is somewhat of a trial run just to help me decide if I want to use the same stuff for that project. I know a lot of people hate on using construction lumber for furniture, and I kind of get it, but people have built beautiful pine furniture for hundreds of years, so I also don't get it. To each their own. As long as you take your time to select good pieces, construction lumber works great. Okay, so let's actually discuss this build. I ripped down my 2x4s to make 2x3s for the legs of this table. I also trimmed down a couple of 2x2s and some 1x2s to make the frame. Then, just for fun, I tapered the inside corner of each leg to add a little detail. Before assembling, I sanded all of my pieces. So many times I use 2x4s in my projects, people accuse me of planing them and not showing that in the video. I wish that you could see me rolling my eyes right now. So here's proof I did not plane these pieces. You can still see the stamp on the faces. I just sand them. I really think a lot of people greatly underestimate the difference a little sanding can make. Do I always take the time to do it perfectly every time? No, but even a light sanding is better than no sanding at all. Anyway, next I pulled out my Craig 720 pocket hole jig and drilled a pocket hole in each end of my 2x2s. Then I pulled out the Craig Micro pocket hole jig to drill smaller pocket holes into my 1x2s to assemble the front and back frames. It's so funny to me when I'm building these projects, they're all essentially the same thing. Like these frames, they're basically the same ones that I made for a couple of dressers previously, and I even filmed the same clip. Speaking of filming, I know that when watching these videos, you may not realize that I'm the one moving the camera. I don't have a cameraman, I have no assistant, it's just me. So when I'm cutting plywood and you see different angles, I had to just pause the cut, move the camera, then resume the cut. So when people ask me how long it took to build a project, I always say about 10 times longer than it would have without a camera. And I really do mean that. And not to be a Debbie Downer, but honestly, filming these projects has sucked a lot of fun out of building them. And I don't say that to complain, I'm just stating a fact. Because while I would prefer to give my undivided attention to the actual project, I'm having to split that attention with a camera. So I'm kind of half paying attention to each thing, which honestly isn't great for either one of them. I will also admit that my project quality has sometimes suffered at times when there was a camera involved, and that really frustrates me a lot because I know that I could have built some things better if I had just been 100% focused. I also can't tell you how many times I've twisted my wrist or my shoulder just trying to do something awkwardly for a good camera angle, but that's just part of the job. I installed two 3/4 inch plywood panels between my frames so that they were inset from the outside edge about 1 inch. Then I cut 2 more pieces of plywood for the divider panels. I marked out each corner so that I could notch them to fit around the frame, and I carefully cut these out with a jigsaw. Then I made sure that they fit before applying edge banding to the front edges. So I wanted to talk real quick about this plywood. I've been happily buying my birch plywood from Home Depot for 8 years, and before you criticize me for that, the closest place to buy plywood besides the big box places around here is 2.5 hours away. And up until recently, I've actually been really happy with the quality. But the last time I went, the selection was kind of disappointing. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be looking for other options soon or what. But for now, it's still structurally sound. The faces just really aren't that pretty. So I'm facing the ugliest sides where they'll be less visible in this project. I cut some bottom panels to help me with spacing. Sometimes my brain is thinking about too many things at once, which I just discussed. So I do things awkwardly like this at first. Why I thought this was a good way to assemble this, I'm really not sure. But then I realized there's an easier way, like just laying this piece on its back instead of on its side. And it's at this point that I realized this project is basically the exact same thing as the bathroom vanity that I built several years ago. As Ecclesiastes says, there's nothing new under the sun. So my favorite part about this project is by far the doors. What makes these doors unique is that I cut my door panels from 1/4-inch plywood, but then I cut 2 shallow grooves in them to kind of fake a shiplap pattern. I use my Craig rip cut to do this, but you could definitely just use a table saw. I've used this method to add extra detail to projects several times in the past, and what I've found is that sometimes the stain tends to camouflage the grooves. So I took a minute to add some black stain into the grooves to make sure that they stood out. Bubs was obviously very helpful. Then I cut dados in some 1x3s to make the door frames. If you saw my cabinet door building video, this method is number 5. By the way, I cut these 1x3 boards from wider 1x10 boards. I've found, at least at my local stores, that often the 1x8s and the 1x10s are some of the nicest pieces. So when possible, I buy those sizes and just rip them down to the widths that I need. I mitered the ends of my door frame boards, then assembled 2 door frames using dowels. While those dried, I moved back to my drawers. I cut and installed 2 divider pieces into this middle section to separate the 3 drawers. Now this is really bringing back some memories of that vanity. Then I installed the slides. I've had several people tell me over the years that if I tried undermount slides, I'd never go back to side mount, but I did try them a long time ago and I really wasn't convinced. Like many things in life, I've found I just really don't get the hype. Anyway, then I could build the drawer boxes. I cut down my drawer box pieces from scraps. My shop is overrun, in all caps, with plywood offcuts. This spring, I've been really trying hard to clean things up in here, so I use scraps when at all possible. It's often much more time consuming to have to cut down all of these pieces individually, but part of me also feels like I'm giving a second life to an otherwise worthless piece of wood. And yes, I do realize it's kind of weird to humanize inanimate objects. Anyway, I have several detailed videos on building drawers, so if you're looking for more information on this process, I will link those videos below. After assembling 3 drawer boxes, I installed them into my cabinet. Then I cut 1x pieces to use for my drawer fronts. My favorite time to be in the shop is late afternoon when the sun starts to set and it shines into my back windows. I don't know how to explain it, but those beams of light bring me so much joy. I use some shims, and any shims will do, but these are specifically Craig spacer blocks, to help me install the drawer fronts using screws from inside of each box. At this point, the glue was dry on the doors, so I sanded away the squeeze out on the corners, and then I just needed a quick visual to see how this was coming along. Almost done. All that's left now is the shelves, a top, and the back, which does kind of sound like a lot, but I promise it's not. For the shelves, I really debated on making adjustable or stationary shelves. You could definitely do either, but I ultimately decided to just add one stationary shelf to each side of the cabinet. So I cut 2 plywood pieces and notched out the back outside corner of each one to fit around the back legs. After test fitting, I set them aside and cut the top. That way I can edge band all 3 pieces at once. I find it really funny when people always tell me how clean my shop looks because it's literally never clean. At any given time, I have 1 to 3 piles of crap just ready to go to the dump. You can see one of them here on the right. A couple times a year, I'll load it all up and dump it, and things may stay reasonably uncluttered for a couple of days before I have more piles of crap. So if you ever think my shop is clean, don't. Once the top was cut, I edge banded it and the 2 shelves at the same time. Since these shelves were going to be stationary, I drilled pocket holes into the ends to install. I'm not super picky about exposed pocket holes, it really just depends on where they are. The only visible pocket holes here on this project are the ones on the side panels, and they will be hidden once the doors are on, but in hindsight, I do kind of wish that I'd either filled them or used dowels here instead. But I'm not going to lose sleep over it or anything. After I secured the top panel, the last part was adding the back. I had 1 full sheet of 1/4-inch plywood in my shop, but I also had tons of scrap strips. I really hated to cut down a single piece from my full sheet just for this, so instead I cut 3 pieces, 1 to cover each section. Not really ideal, but it works fine. And at this point, it was ready for finish. So I stained it in Minwax oil-based Early American. I've been using water-based stain a lot lately, and I think it looks better on pine than oil-based stain, but the downside is that it's a lot harder to apply because it dries so fast, which is why I went with oil this time. Sometimes pine stains really well with oil, and sometimes it doesn't. This time ended up being a little more splotchy than usual, so that kind of stinks, but I do really like the color. After a few coats of Minwax polyacrylic to seal it, I installed the doors using some butt hinges and magnetic catches. I could have used concealed hinges here, but I thought that the butt hinges kind of kept the rustic feel. Then I added some simple black knobs. I use these on like everything, you've probably noticed. And once these were on, this piece is finished. Like many of the things that I build, I really don't have a use for this just yet. I built it mainly to make a video, but as with any project, I did learn a few things in hindsight that I can take with me for the next one. So I'm not sure what will come of this piece. It may be recycled or gifted away, but I do really like how it turned out, and those doors are still my favorite part. I hope you enjoyed diving a little more behind the scenes with me in this video, and I can't wait to bring you along on the next one. As always, thank you so much for watching, friends, and until next time, happy building.